the most common male sexual strategy is to be a taxi cab, in the sense that they
I
show
like
up,
that.
they roll up to the woman and say, "Hey, sweetheart, where do you want to go? I'll take you wherever you want to go. Come on, you want to go to Dubai? You want to go to Miami? You want to go to Vegas? You want diamonds? You want meals? You want drinks? I'm here to make it happen." And a lot of women will get in that cab,
Yeah.
and the guys will drive around for a while, maybe for years. And then one day they might turn around and say, "Hey, you know, we've been going to where you wanted to go for quite some time. Do you think maybe you could get up here and drive me somewhere?" And that woman's going to get the fuck out of that cab, because that's not how cabs work. Can you imagine if a cab driver actually did that in real life?
You hit the nail on it. I tell nice guys this: the more you do for a woman, all that's probably going to do is create more expectation that you're going to do stuff for her. It doesn't create a deeper like
Oh,
or attraction on her part.
the more you come into yourself, the more you come into your masculine, the more you're not afraid to want what you want and to live your life as you see fit. I would say a proportion of women become much more attracted to you. And when, if and when you do not give some of those women what they want, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. They don't really seem to care when the men that they're not attracted to don't give them what they want. That's why I think the nice guys get
I get
rejected
that
more
point.
softly. Do you understand?
I get that point. And I still don't think I'd want to do it any other way.
Mm.
I heard a quote. I was at a conference years ago with David Data. He wrote the book Way of the Superior Man. Probably, a lot of men have heard of that. He made a comment that I had to ponder for a little bit, and then it just really landed. But he said, choose a woman who chooses you.
Absolutely.
And what happens is, you probably seen guys go out, well, I'm choosing that woman because she's hot. But she hasn't chosen us. And now we're doing all these things, jumping through hoops, trying to get her to like us, buying her stuff, whatever our typical way of seduction is, to try to get her to choose us. I see married men do this. I did it in a previous marriage. Guys will say, Dr. Glover, we've been married for over 15 years. My wife hasn't wanted to have sex since our kid was born 12 years ago. How can I, turn her on and make her want to have sex? I go, I think your wife quit choosing you a long time ago. And you're still trying to get her to choose you. I've tried everything. So if we choose a woman who chooses us, now a lot of guys, again, going back to that nice guy thing, or just the guy thing, guys will say, well, but I want the hot ones, and the only women that seem to choose me are kind of the fat older ones that I don't really want. And I go, okay, I get it. I'm not going to argue that point. But that's not been my experience. My experience is, if I've been out there being me, I'll keep coming back to that. Being me, living my life on my terms, not chasing any woman, not trying to get any woman to like me, and especially not trying to get any woman to have sex with me. That's a point where a lot of guys run into trouble, is we're hiding our sexual agenda while pushing a sexual agenda all at the same time. And I tell guys, if you got your foot on the gas and her foot's still on the brake, the more you put your foot on the gas, the more her foot's going on the brake.
Sure.
So trying to get any woman to have sex is usually how guys, end up a hashtag Me Too casualty, is we're trying to push an agenda, rather than, when the woman has chosen us, she will let us know without a doubt she's ready.
Mm-hmm.
She's open. Take me. Right. So I want that kind of woman. Now, is that kind of woman maybe going to be disappointed in me if I don't choose her back? Yeah, there's that possibility. But I also found that only seemed to happen if I was maybe in some way either leading her on or didn't end something when it needed to be ended. Because, like, when I first started dating, because I hadn't had a lot of sex in my second marriage, and I wasn't particularly experienced before marriage, I said, I'm going to say yes to every sexual opportunity. And I did. And I went through what I call my integrated man whore stage. And I was just consciously saying yes, and consciously letting women know I was not exclusive. Now, you can tell a woman that, and they can know it intellectually. But once once they feel that attraction, or once they're hooked, it's kind of like they forget that. The chemistry takes over, the chemicals take over. And I found that if I kept those going on, just because, well, I'm getting laid, regular, but I knew I did not want what I had a growing sense she wanted. I learned after a few kind of rough experiences, end that rather sooner rather than later, to where it did not keep going on because it was convenient and enjoyable for me. But yet I realized she was getting a deeper connection than I was.
Hmm.
So I just took that on me. It saved me a lot of messes further down the road.
I hear what you're saying. You might be right. I do think that potentially means that you're taking agency away from the woman, in the sense that if she's not getting what she wants, why wouldn't her be her responsibility to take herself out of that arrangement?
But
So
they don't
yeah,
necessarily. They don't count
yeah,
on that.
mhm. Yeah, I say this in one of my episodes. People don't want what they want. So people want what they want, not what wants them. And so you can't get someone to like you by liking them more. And one of the worst things that you can do is to start doing things for someone to try to increase their desire for you. In fact,
Yeah.
the research suggests that if you actually want someone to like you more, you should ask them to do things for you.
What's the term for that? There's a psychological term based on like a present is not the Coolidge effect, but there's another where somebody, there's a term for it. I can't remember the term given to that.
Well, the
Yeah,
way
psychologically, if you ask somebody, they do something for you, they have to justify in their mind
exactly.
that if I'm doing this for this person, I must value them in
Yeah, I
some way.
don't do things for any old joker. I don't usually
Yeah,
go out of my way for people. So why am I doing it
exactly.
for Orion? Oh, I must think he's an interesting guy. I must have some.
The, and we'll talk ourselves into it,
Hmm.
and whether or not that lasts very long, I don't know. But yeah, you hit the nail on it. I tell nice guys this: the more you do for a woman, all that's probably going to do is create more expectation that you're going to do stuff for her. It doesn't create a deeper like
Oh,
or attraction on her part.
yeah, let's talk about this, Robert, because I teach that the most common male sexual strategy is to be a taxi cab, in the sense that they
I
show
like
up,
that.
they roll up to the woman and say, "Hey, sweetheart, where do you want to go? I'll take you wherever you want to go. Come on, you want to go to Dubai? You want to go to Miami? You want to go to Vegas? You want diamonds? You want meals? You want drinks? I'm here to make it happen." And a lot of women will get in that cab,
Yeah.
and the guys will drive around for a while, maybe for years. And then one day they might turn around and say, "Hey, you know, we've been going to where you wanted to go for quite some time. Do you think maybe you could get up here and drive me somewhere?" And that woman's going to get the fuck out of that cab, because that's not how cabs work. Can you imagine if a cab driver actually did that in real life? You just say, "Pull over here. Let me off at this corner. That's good." So when you do start off, when your primary relationship strategy is, "I'm here to serve you,"
Right.
well, that's what she's signing up for. And it would be kind of a breach of contract almost if you were to change that further down the road or mid trip. Like,
It
I can
well,
understand why women would bounce at that point.
Well, it is because, I've worked with nice guys for 30 years. And so, for example, if a guy who's been being that nice guy in a long-term relationship, doing everything she wanted, sacrificing his wants and needs, giving up all his guy friends, always being there, beck and call. And now all of a sudden, he reads my book or he comes to therapy with me or whatever. And he starts realizing I need to say no. I need to have boundaries. I need to make my needs a priority. I need to fill my own bucket. I need to ask for what I want. And he starts doing that.
Oh, it's going to be
Uh,
hard.
when before I'm going on memory here. This doesn't have to be accurate, but before I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy, I would say that, that when that happens, I give it about a 50-50 chance of the relationship making it. When the guy starts actually asserting himself, about 50-50 chance. Some women are going to say, finally, you showed up. Where have you been? I've wanted, because women love my book. They love No More Mr. Nice Guy. I mean, there's been no at all negative blowback from women. They want the man to show up. Most
Mm,
do, right?
mm, mhm.
So then as I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, I think in the book I might have said, I think maybe it's about more like 60-40 now, that 60% of the relationships won't make it. I think by the time that I finished writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, 70-30. Let's go about 80-20 now. that if the guy changes the fundamental contract of the relationship, maybe 20% of the time the woman's going to go, this may be a challenge. It's going to be a struggle. I'm in though, because I think you're amazing and I want to be with you. But a
Yeah.
lot are going to fall away just because they got comfortable with how they thought things were supposed to be, even if it wasn't what they wanted. Because I
Sure.
don't think most of the women actually want to get into the back seat of a taxi driver and have the guy do things for them constantly. But a lot of times the woman's not going to say no to everything the guy wants to do. But then after a while, it starts to feel like the norm. And wait, you're going to take that away from me now? Yeah, that's when you
Yeah.
get the reaction.
Easiest way to make a baby cry is to give it a lollipop and then take it away. And so even though
I'll
they might
keep
not have
that in
wanted,
mind.
even if they might not have wanted a lollipop, I don't think lollipops are that great for babies, right? They've gotten used to it. It's sweet, and now you've given a taste for something that they're going to
Right.
not be experiencing for a while. And that's really the guy's fault because he's trained the woman to expect that kind of behavior and
Exactly.
treatment over those years. And I say it always gets worse before it gets better because you have to deal with the extinction bursts that come when you try to modify behavior in a pre-existing dynamic. 80-20, I think, is probably generous, to be
We
honest.
can keep evolving the numbers.
Almost always easier to just do the right thing from the beginning than to try
You
to fix
know,
something.
I agree, but how many of us know to do that? I joke that no, I don't joke. I tell the truth. I had a PhD in marriage and family therapy at 29 years old, and I bumbled my way through my three marriages. And you know what? I think most of us
We're just
are
collecting
gonna
data.
bump. We're gonna bumble our way through life. I think that's what happens. Now, hopefully, we can get some good guides, some good mentors, some good initiation, some good instruction. Um, but again, kind of going back to, there's so much unhelpful stuff out there available now is that men often don't know what to pick. Like I said, can how do I make, Dr. Glover, John Gottman, and Red Pill all fit together? And guys are trying to do that. So they don't know what's the good information. And usually the most prominent information is the one that appeals to their most base, what's the easiest way to make this happen? Nature.
I hear that, and I believe that all those clickbaity programs that you mentioned earlier exist because
They work.
people are buying them,
Yeah.
not necessarily because they work, but because people are buying them.
No, they
But
work. They work because they sell product. That's what I mean. They
I
work.
see. Okay. For me personally, I've never used one of those. I've never gone down that funnel, but I think for me, what was the source of the greatest misunderstanding about women when I was younger was just the mass media and the culture,
Yeah,
movies, pop songs,
of course.
literature. There's this great play. I don't know if you read a lot of drama, but it's called Boy Gets Girl by Rebecca Gilman. She's a very talented playwright. Have you heard of this, Robert?
I'm not.
It's an interesting kind of a thriller because what happens is that there's a guy who is trying to court a woman, and he basically starts to act like the men in romantic comedies do, and he like buys billboards to declare his love and shows up with the speaker underneath them, and like people don't know what to do with him. It eventually turns he starts to like follow her around and stalk her a little bit, and so it starts to go into a dark place. But the core premise of the book is he's doing what society is telling him men are supposed to do to get the woman.
Right.
And let me tell you, that shit does not work. But
And
why do we
so,
keep telling men
well,
to do that shit?
because it sells. It sells. The women buy the romantic comedies. They do they really want the guy standing out under the window with the speaker blasting Your Eyes?
Well, how does that work? How do they buy the fantasy, but they don't want it in reality? That's interesting.
How much have you hung around women?
Fair enough.
Yeah, when they're watching all those daytime dramas and they're watching all the nighttime dramas, and they're written, they're watching um Grey's Anatomy. That's just the dumbest ass show I've ever seen in my life. Kardashians, just the dumbest ass show. And women flock to that. They're not seeking out reality. But even think about it. When we watch adventure flicks, whether it's Tom Cruise or Sly or Vin Diesel, are we looking for reality? No, we're looking for entertainment and escape. But so when we start mistaking entertainment and escape for reality, that's when we're going to start having problems.
Well, what do you think about this? I made an episode a long time ago called "The Part That Women Always Leave Out," because if you
Okay.
ask a woman what she's looking for in a man, you'll hear
Yeah.
things like, "Oh, I want somebody who's kind," or "I want somebody who is, great with kids," or "I want somebody who respects me." And a lot of guys are thinking, "Okay, well, I can do those things. Why am I
Sure.
not having the success that I would like with women?" And I think it's because the part that women always leave out is they want those things, but they want them from the men they're already attracted to.
Yeah.
And so
And
that's the key.
and
It's not like
even
being those things make a woman attracted to you. She just wants those traits in the men that she's attracted to. And so that's the part that men need to hear.
well, you've probably even seen the studies that say, women will be married to that guy that's stable and, creates a household. And then when they're ovulating, they're attracted to something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't bring this up as an accurate statistic, but I recall reading before that statistically 30% of children in monogamous intact marriages, 30% of the kids are not biologically the husband of the woman.
I heard 10%.
30%.
30% is really
10.
high, but okay.
Well, all right, let's go.
Even
So
10%
even
is really high.
split the difference, right? It and what's that saying is that, yeah, again, I said earlier, women can be attracted to drug dealers, to guys in prison. They're what the women don't tell. Well, let's even back this further up. Some really cool research that I came across a while ago is a university is in Canada. It's a Canadian study where they studied a lot of people around sexual arousal, and they hooked up men and women, of all sexual orientations, hooked the man up to measure engorgement in his genitals and the women as well, and they gave them a button, and then they showed them videos. Okay, and the men were really, believe it or not, very white bread, and very predictable in what they both physiologically responded to and what they pushed the button. Basically, heterosexual guys were attracted to heterosexual sex with some threesomes thrown in.
And they
As
were
about it.
conscious of their arousal. That's kind of your
They were
point
they
here.
were conscious of their arousal.
Mhm.
Had a gay men were attracted to gay sex. What got reported in all the media was the part of the study that's had women had surprisingly this really wide variety response to sexual fantasy, or whether it was men of the opposite sex, female sex, sex with gorillas. It was at all the extremes
Mhm.
that the women were having a response to, and that's what the media reported on. I went and found the original study because I'm that kind of person. I want to say, well, really, what was here?
Mhm.
There was another statistically significant finding that none of the popular media reported. And there was a statistical significant difference between what the woman's body was responding to and what her finger pushed.
Yeah, I remember
With
that.
men, there wasn't. We're pretty predictable. With the women, their body was turned on by one thing, but they didn't push the button. Or they pushed the button, said they're turned on, but their body wasn't. And in that, I tell men, don't listen to what women tell you of what they want and what they're attracted to. So when they say, I want a nice guy, part of the month, part of them really does believe that. Another part of the month is, oh, I just got to get fucked. But and I'm making maybe an exaggeration, but maybe not that far. Okay.
No.
So don't buy into what your sister tells you they want, what your mother says women want, what even, the nice girls that you're seeking the approval from. Don't buy into what they tell you that they want. Watch what they do. Watch. And unfortunately, that's when men go to that point of, well, they're just attracted to like the alpha males and the bad boys. Because again, we just get that funnel vision,
They do
tunnel
like
vision.
bad boys, though. That's
I'm
a
not, but when the men go, well, they're only attracted.
no, that's not
And
true.
and I could tell guys, you can actually be a decent guy, a decent human being, and still create bad boy energy
Yep.
in attraction in women. And it can be pretty simple. Not being too available, right? Not giving them gifts, asking them to do something for you. They're just little tricks that create that same kind of energy that the bad boys create without you having to be an asshole.
Okay, that's interesting because I've shared similar tips on my channel, and often the push, it's generally well received, but probably the most common pushback is something along the lines of, "Oh, Orion, you know, you've made it. This is manipulative. Shouldn't I just be myself? Like, why do I have to play these games in order to keep a woman interested in me?" What would you say to that?
I'm saying what that guy's really saying is he doesn't want to put any work into getting what he says he wants. He's just as deceitful as the woman who says, I want a nice guy. He says, I want a woman, but don't ask me to really work on myself or actually work at doing things that actually makes me attractive to women. I really just want to play video games and surf the internet and jack off to porn. Please don't ask me to actually work on myself.
Hmm.
That's what I would say to that. Again, guys say they want a lot of stuff, just like women say they want a lot of stuff.
Wanting is free. It costs nothing to want.
There you go. So,
Fascinating.
and then guys, then I'll get the other thing from guys. They'll say, okay, Robert, here's a contradiction. You say, work on these things in you and they will make you attractive. Then they'll go, that's a contradiction because now it sounds like you're trying to do things to get women to be attracted to you. And I go, okay, let's take a breath here. There are side effects of you working on you, positive side effects. If you work on you because you want to live your best life, you want to get out of your comfort zone, you want to live at your edge, you want to level up to the best version of you, you want your best life, you want adventure, you want opportunity, you want fun. If you do the things that require focus and effort and discipline and consistency to do those things, I found there's this side effect over here that all of a sudden you notice a lot of women are checking you out.
Well, you wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy 20 years ago, you said?
Yeah, long before I knew any of the stuff you and I are talking about.
What was the trajectory there? Like, did you experience something that was even before, not before the entire internet, but before the internet kind of as we know it? Did you experience some fame as a consequence of that book?
Not early on. I'm maybe just coming into my fame,
Well, well
perhaps.
deserved.
Whatever.
Do you think that has something to do with it?
With what?
The effortlessness with which you attract women these
No,
days?
when I was dating, well, yeah, nowadays, I don't know. My wife points out all the women who I seem to be attracting nowadays. I actually am not interested in and not paying all that much attention until she gets mad at me and says that woman was flirting with you, and I go, that's my fault. How? You have a man that women want. You're not complaining
Sure.
about that, are you? I don't actually respond exactly like that, but that's the bottom line. No, when I like I said when I was in my late 40s and 50s and started having this kind of success. I'd gotten out of a long bad marriage. I hadn't been sexual for very long, very much for very long. I was actually coming off antidepressants that had kind of killed sex drive and erections.
Mm.
I went through a bankruptcy. I was driving a Subaru, an
It's
old
only
Subaru.
going to get up from there,
Yeah,
Robert.
yeah, yeah.
It's only going to get better.
And in spite of all of that, I was out in public. I was having a good time. I was going to listen to live jazz. I was eating in happy hours at restaurant bars. I was talking to the people around me. I still know bartenders that I met 20 years ago and got to know them by name. And, even getting to know bartenders, good stuff happens. They bring you drinks and stuff they poured that, the
Oh,
person
sure.
didn't want.
Dating
And
bartenders is fun too.
I was going to say, I've never dated a bartender, but I
Oh, they're
think maybe
dangerous.
I think I have. Oh yeah. But there's a reason there's bartenders. But that kind of, I'm not so much engaged in that kind of behavior anymore. I'm kind of more of a homebody. I'm home, working on my stuff, working with guys, taking the dog for a walk, stuff like that. But when I was having that heyday of my integrated man whore phase, I did not, I'd even gotten kind of chubby. I was, a little bit overweight, and there was nothing out of the ordinary special about me. And I was still having women, hit on me, proposition me, get naked on first dates. And, I tell the story, I haven't told this one in a while. I had sex with 4 different women in one weekend. All of them knew I wasn't exclusively having sex with
Where
them.
were you when this happened in the world?
Where was I? What state did I live in? Or
Yeah, or what country?
I was in Bellevue, Washington,
No
actually.
kidding. Wow.
Bellevue,
All right.
Washington.
Can you please define this term for me that you've used a couple times, the integrated man whore phase? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
You know what? It's quite simply, I've already given you the core components, is that I made the decision to say yes to every sexual opportunity that presented itself, even if she wasn't a 10,
That's the man whore part. So what's the integrated man whore part?
is that I was very conscious about it. Um, practice safe sex. I let the women know this was not the beginning of a relationship.
I see.
The women know that, if you meet them somewhere and they go home with you, they know that's not the beginning of a good relationship. They know they want to get fucked, and you do too. So I was very conscious and integrated, very truthful. I mentioned earlier, I also learned to end those relationships in a timely way and not let them go on to where they became uh, disruptive or ugly, because the woman was starting to want something that I didn't. So I was very conscious about it. So integrated meaning I was telling the truth. I was paying attention. I was acting very lovingly and open-hearted to the women. One of the things I know the women liked is that when they were with me, I treated them like, they were the only woman on the planet.
Well, I think that's because everything that you say and do gets filtered through a woman's attraction. So
Oh,
if
of
she
course.
likes you and her attraction is very high, you could say something completely nonsensical and she'd think you're just being silly. And that's one of your best qualities. And if she's not, she's going to think that you had an aneurysm and you need to go to the
Yeah.
hospital. So,
I,
what
I,
really matters is how she feels about you. And she's kind of already made
I
a
agree.
decision about how she feels about you in advance of really much of anything,
Oh,
usually.
I think we've seen those statistics too, that probably, what they say, in the first 3 seconds, a woman knows if there's a possibility she might sleep with you. And then while we guys are spending 3 months, doing the nice guy seduction, they decided in the first 3 seconds, they're not getting naked with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, the mistakes that men made. So I tell guys, and again, guys could probably misspin this one as well. If a woman is into you, you almost can't fuck that up. And
It's
if
true.
she's not into you, there's almost nothing you can do to switch that around either. That's just reality.
Yeah, a woman who's 10 out of 10 attracted to a guy will do scary things. She will
Oh,
hide the body. She will lie to the
you're talking
cops.
about my wife. You're talking about my wife. She's scary fun.
That's great. Robert, we're coming up on time. I'd like to know a little bit more about your, is it fair to say community?
Community, that's what we call it. I jokingly, playfully call it the Gloverhood. Um, yeah, Integration Nation is a men's program that I launched in July of 2023. Um, I'm just a big believer men need community. We need tribe. My most significant growth processes have happened when I was in community, once kind of early on in my 30s, about 5, 6 years in a men's group. And then even just recently, about a year into my marriage with my wife, I realized I needed community. I needed men. I'm
Sure.
down
Yeah.
in Mexico, having to speak Spanish. And so I went looking and I found a men's program that I've been in for the last 6 years. I'm now surrounded with men. I've got calls I have every week with guys that I know. And so I'm a big believer in community. And so, somebody mentioned to me, a couple of years ago, Robert, you should start, a men's membership program and, make your product available, all your content. And so that's what we've been working on. We're still a work in process. We still have a way to go. But in July of 23, we launched the community part of Integration Nation. And, we have up to 9 virtual calls a week that guys can jump on every Thursday, including today, in about 2 hours. No, less than an hour and a half. I'll be on a community call for Integration Nation. I'll teach a lesson. Tonight's lesson will be about how to get your needs met, how to get your needs met without being needy, right?
Nine
And
calls a
so
week. That's a lot.
I'm doing one of them.
I see.
And I've certified coaches that lead 7 others, and we have a couple, webinars we do a couple months, so up to 9 calls a week. We have a timeline for guys can communicate with each other. We have some other challenges that we'll offer. We're about to start in-person meetups around the world, just casual get-togethers for guys. We're about to start some peer-led support groups as part of the program. And this is just the basic part. We're going to launch more later this year. So, I'm just a big fan. Guys, wherever we're struggling in life, I tend to say is probably due to a lack of good men. And I think almost anything that's not working well in our life, if we go get connected well with men, those things will start changing how they look, how they're working.